This is a Louie Tee Network exclusive.
Who else could it be? Me, Dormant. Louie Tee, welcome. You are in the lab room, of course. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on the 2016 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series. Your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names the 2016 NFL Draft. We're talking about a position that's near and dear to my heart. Of course, we're talking about wide receivers. Look, I could sit here and talk to you about wide receivers all day and all night. It's a position that tickles my fancy, and everybody's got that one position that they look at just a little bit more closely than all the others. For me, it's wide receiver. So we're going to keep it at a minimum. I'm not going to talk your head off and list 8 or 10 receivers because I could, but I'm not. I'm going to keep it to a minimum, 5 or 6 guys. And just like I said with all the other positions, hopefully we have enough time to double back around and talk about more receivers, because you know I would love to do just that. But before we do any of that extra stuff, let's just jump into this breakdown, and we're going to talk about the receiver position. And we're going to jump into it with the guy that a lot of people think is the best receiver in this draft class. Notice, I didn't say the guy that I think is the best. What everyone else is saying, the consensus. Okay, I don't have a problem with groupthink, but eventually you will know exactly how I feel about every position and every player in those positions at some point in time, maybe on the podcast. If you check that out, you'll know exactly how I feel about all these groups and all these positions and where these guys rank in my estimation. But let's jump into the guy that most people think is going to come off the board first at the wide receiver position. And again, what's your flavor? Talking about Ole Miss wide receiver Laquon Treadwell. Big boy. Okay, let's start with his pros, jump into his cons, and then move on to the next guy on the series. 6'2", 215, great size for an NFL #1 wide receiver. Just let's face it, okay? When you draft a guy in the first round, and Laquon Treadwell at some point in the first round, top 10, top 15, top 20, doesn't matter. At some point, Laquon Treadwell will hear his name in the first round, the first day of the 2016 NFL Draft. Now, when you draft a guy in the first round, you're looking for a #1 receiver. Nobody actually ever drafted a receiver in the first round and said, hey, I hope to just get a really good #2 receiver out of this pick. No, that's not what people do in the first round. So when you look at his size, 6'2", 215, you're thinking, okay, he's got the right build to be a #1. What else you got? What else does Laquon Treadwell bring to the table? Huge hands. And I'm not a guy to sit here and tell you, hey, this guy's got huge mitts, and then start running off numbers to you. That's not who I am. But as a guy with little girl hands, I can appreciate when I see a grown man with some huge meat cleavers. That's what this guy has. He palms the football like it's a piece of paper, and you see him flailing the football all around, and he's got huge mitts, and that allows him to pluck the football out of the air. We'll talk about how those huge hands come in handy for Laquon Treadwell. One of the ways that it does, the next pro can high point the football, go get it in the air. You gotta have big hands, strong hands, more specifically, to go up and get the football over a defender, because guys are gonna be raking at your arms, guys are gonna be raking at the ball, and for you to pull it down with the guy draped all over you, go up at its highest point and snatch the football out of the air, gotta have some big hands, but more importantly, strong hands. That's what Laquon Treadwell has, and that's why he's able to make some plays and go up and get the football. The next pro, great body position, and to me, he would make a great New Orleans Saint. He would make a great player that has a quarterback that knows how to utilize the back shoulder fade. And that's another one of his pros, so I'll go ahead and lump it in while we're here. His body position, he's one of those guys, I call it the box out, where you get a big framed receiver that knows how to position his body to keep defenders outside of the catching window. And he's one of those guys that will put you on his hip. Come on, big boy, get on my hip. And he'll keep you away from the football, box you out, and it gives the quarterback just an easy target to throw the football, gives the quarterback a chance to throw the football all over the radius because he knows my receiver isn't going to allow this defender to cross his face and get in front of my pass and pick it off. And so he knows how to body position himself in between he and the defender and allows himself to catch that football 9 times out of 10. And a guy like Drew Brees, they could use a brand new toy out there. Marquise Colston, pretty old out there. They could use another big boy. I'm not saying that's what the Saints need because they need defensive help. Before they touch anything on the offense, they need to go get some defensive help. But I tell you what, man, a guy like Drew Brees or a quarterback like that, and you know, Drew Brees is the father of the back shoulder fade throw in the NFL. A quarterback like that with a player like this, that pass would be borderline unstoppable. Adjust to the football. Anytime you talk about a guy that knows how to position his body and can go up and high point the football, you're talking about a guy not normally with good attributes in the air, able to adjust to the football. But this isn't just back shoulder fading, because you know a lot of times you run up the field on a back shoulder fade, you might turn to the outside to catch the football. We're not just talking about that. Ball being thrown in the air and having to locate it over the shoulder, not turning your whole body, but just looking at it like this and catching it over the shoulder. Do you know how hard it is to catch a football running full speed? Try it sometime. Running full speed, don't turn this way. Find the football like this. Do you know how hard it is to look over your entire body, looking backwards up while you're running full speed, track the football and catch it? And then it is not going to be in the perfect location every time. It's not just going to be here. You might look over your shoulder, look over your head, and now the football's over here, or it's over here, and you got to adjust in that split second or it's incomplete. He does that probably the best of any receiver in this draft. There is one guy that I could think of that may have him in that department. We'll talk about him another time, but I tell you what, Laquon Treadwell adjusts very well to the football. When it is in flight, tracks it well, can go and get it, and can catch it over the shoulder with a defender draped all over him. You see him do it all the time. Rat, yak, whatever you want to call it, okay? Look, tomato, you call it whatever you want. Run after the catch, yards after the catch, whatever, he does it, okay? So whether it's rat or yak to you, he does it. He's one of those guys at Ole Miss that wanted to get the football in his hands quickly because they said, hey, we'll let Laquon do the rest, okay? Just get him the football, whether it's a jailbreak screen, whether it's a hitch, whether he just looks at the quarterback and the quarterback looks at him and says, hey, they're playing way off, I'm gonna just throw you the football. It was a run, me and you gonna change it to a pass, we're gonna get you the football, we're gonna just run out in space. He's a guy that's hard to bring down. You rarely see the first guy to the football make the tackle on Laquon Treadwell because he's a guy that gets yards after the catch. You could go ahead and throw it yards after contact. You can call it what you want. Just know that this guy's piling up the yardage after he gets the football in his hands. Tremendous blocker, okay? Tremendous blocker is an understatement. Look, much like I talk about with tackling and cornerbacks and rebounding, that it's all about 1-2. Same thing goes for blocking at receiver. If you want to block, you can. And most receivers don't go out looking for a ruckus. They don't go out looking for some extracurricular activity. They're just like, hey, if the guy's in front of me, I'll block him. If he's not, and I'm not in the play, I don't care. Well, he's not exactly one of those type of guys. He's more on line with Hines Ward, one of those guys that'll knock your block off just because you're around. So, balls on his side, and I can't tell you how many times this guy blocked multiple players on one play, where the quarterback's got the football, running back's got the football, whomever, receiver, he's blocking, he'll block one guy, knock him down on the ground, and go get a piece of another guy. And he had a reputation around the SEC as a guy you had to keep your head on a swivel for, because if you didn't, he was going to blindside you and knock your block off. So he is a guy that plays not just when he has the football in his hands, but plays when he doesn't, just as hard and physical without it as he does with it. So he's a guy that will block, and I love to see that with receivers. And that's another reason why teams are saying, hey, this is a guy that we feel like could be one of the best in this draft class. Not because what he does with the football, but what he does without the football. And sometimes you don't really realize how big of a momentum boost that is for your team when they see a receiver out there giving it all he has and blocking. It does something for your football team when you see a guy out there out wide giving it to a defender and helping his teammate pick up extra yardage down the field. he can throw the football. And I talked about those big mitts. Well, he can throw the football. And at Ole Miss, it was not uncommon to see Laquon Treadwell get a pass behind the line of scrimmage and line up and try to fling it down the field. He can actually throw it pretty well. So don't be surprised if 2 or 3 years down the road, they may not do it in his rookie season, but don't be surprised if some offensive coordinator says, hey, did you used to throw the football in college? And he goes, yeah, man, I was a high school quarterback or some craziness. And they say, you know what? You actually did a pretty good job. Let's try you on a double pass. And don't be surprised if you see Laquon Treadwell at some point in his career throwing a pass for a touchdown or a big game, because hey, he can throw the football. Don't be surprised. I'm telling you right now that the dude can throw the football. Let's go to his cons though. Not explosive, okay? If you're looking for an explosive, 4'4", 40 guy at 6'2", 215, this isn't your guy right here, okay? Lacks long distance speed. I'm gonna just go ahead and lump that into. So you're not getting a bunch of quick explosive movement. So not a lot of quick bursts, and you're not getting a guy that's gonna beat you deep with long distance speed. Now, I will say the 2015 version of Laquon Treadwell looked a lot faster than the 2014 version. I actually looked at their tight end, and I said, damn, he looks faster than Laquon Treadwell. That was in 2014. In 2015, Laquon Treadwell to me looked a lot faster after he came back from rehabbing his broken fibula and dislocated ankle. We'll talk about that in a little bit. He looked a lot faster than me in 2015. Saw him take the top off of Texas A&M's defense, ran right by the safety and the cornerback. And again, he's one of those guys, if he catches you flat-footed, and you can say this about 85% of the league at receiver, if they catch you flat-footed, they can run by you, okay? But if you're running and he's running and you see him come in and you take off full sprint, he's not gonna get by you. He's not that kind of athlete in terms of speed. So he doesn't threaten you deep necessarily, and there's this big stink about him running at the combine, not running at the combine. He's chosen not to run at the combine, which to me, look, at the end of the day, if you're not fast, you're not fast. Like, you can go to ING or any of these camps you want to try to shave off. What's a couple of tenths of seconds really gonna do to your time? Look, it's one thing if you're running a 4.51 and you wanna get it to 4.49. Hey, that sounds better, 4.49, 4.51, but actuality, how much faster are you really now? 4.49 sounds great because you're a sub 4.5 40 guy. But if you're running a 4.57, and you shave it down to 4.55, are we gonna think any more of you because you shaved your time by 0.2 of a second? You're still slow. So I don't really know about what Laquon Treadwell is trying to do by not running at the combine, because if you're slow, you're slow, and it is what it is. The guy, to me, speed isn't his game. We know that. Okay, let's deal with it. Let's find out what your time is, and we can move on from there. Anyway, concentration lapses is the next con for this guy, because for all of the good he does, last 2 seasons, 196 targets, 12 drops. So he's a guy that will drop the football, and I know he can catch. He's got good hands. I told you he got big, huge mitts for hands. There's a catch out there. I want to say it was against New Mexico in like one of the first games of the season, and he just reaches his hand out there. A couple of, I think it was after their first loss of the season. I want to say it was to Florida, if I'm not mistaken. The next game they play New Mexico, and he reaches out there and grabs the football. I mean, gets past the coverage, stretches the football, stretches his arm out, catches the football with one hand, keeps his balance, stays in bounds, scores a touchdown. It's a beautiful catch. But what you don't see, if you didn't watch the tape, is that he had like 3 or 4 drops earlier in that game before the big, amazing one-hand stab for a touchdown. I mean, that's the inconsistency you can get sometimes from Laquon Treadwell. He'll catch the football, and sometimes he'll have a concentration drop. You're like, you're better than that. Catch the football, man. But it's not something that I worry about too much, because unless your name is Larry Fitzgerald, you're probably going to drop the football throughout the course of your career. He's about the only guy that I know that just doesn't drop the football. So you're going to have drops. A.J. Green drops the football all the time, but you'll throw it to him again. You'll throw it to him again because it's A.J. Green, and that's the same way most people feel about Laquon Treadwell. But the big elephant in the room, and some of the questions you'll have to answer at the combine, is how's your lower extremities? I talked about 2014 versus Auburn. I kind of alluded to it. Well, let's talk about it now. broken left fibula and dislocated ankle. That's why they took the horse collar tackle out of the game. It's an ugly, nasty, vicious tackle as he's scoring a touchdown, the game-winning touchdown versus Auburn in 2014, gets in the end zone, and as he's getting across the goal line, the defender yanks him down, falls down, puts all his weight down on his ankle and his leg. It's a nasty fall. He goes down in a heap, and it's a broken fibula and a dislocated ankle. Missed the remainder of the season. Had to rehab. It was a long journey back, but you see what the end result was. Big 2015 campaign. Capped it off with a beautiful performance in the bowl game versus Oklahoma State, where he had 3 touchdown grabs, and he threw another good pass down the field. Again, it was a perfect exclamation point for a guy trying to be the first pick at the receiver position in this year's draft. So Laquon Treadwell brings a lot to the table. I think he's a guy that you look at, you see the prototypical build, you see everything that you want to see in a number 1 wide receiver. We got questions about his speed. He won't answer them at the combine. I guess we'll have to wait till his pro day for that. But notwithstanding, this is a guy that I feel like is going to make some team really happy in this year's draft. And I think he's got a big upside. But question remains, how fast are you? I look on tape, I know you're not fast. At this point, it doesn't really make a big difference to me. I just want you to catch the football when I throw it to you. If he can do that, I think he's going to be all right in the National Football League. And so, that's Laquon Treadwell and his 2016 NFL Draft Prospects 101 breakdown. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. See you next time. We got more receivers to chop it up about. Come back. See you then. There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie Tee, be sure to follow me on Twitter at In The Lab Room, or you can like the Facebook page at In The Lab Room. That's In The Lab Room on Facebook and at In The Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.